I think he wants to do a shark film.
Stop it. Really?
No, it was just he tried so hard to get bloody sharks into the Colosseum.
I could see him doing a shark film. Sharknado 10, directed by Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott. Hi, welcome to That Reminds Me Of,
a podcast about film and the films that remind us of that film. You're here with
Baron and the Doc. Do we need another drink?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Baron, how are you?
Doctor, I am doing so well.
Doctor now, it's not Doc.
Well, sometimes it's Doctor.
Okay.
I mean, Doc is short for Doctor.
That's true. What's Baron short for?
Baron Malophilophilus. Malophilos.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Which brings us to our film this week, which is Gladiator 2.
Gladiator 2.
2 weeks ago, we saw this and we had a reaction to it straight out of the cinema. Go check that out. I don't think we were impressed. We were confused. We were saying, come back to us while we think about this one.
And now we're back.
We're back.
We've thought about it.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Synopsis, Doc.
Synopsis. Gladiator 2, directed by Ridley Scott, returns to ancient Rome decades after the events of the original. The story follows Lucius, played by Paul Mescal, now an adult and wrestling with the legacy of Maximus, Russell Crowe, while navigating a politically fractured empire. Rome is on the brink of rebellion, with its leadership divided and new threats looming, including a power-hungry military figure seeking to seize control. That's Denzel Washington.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks. Lucius finds himself reluctantly drawn into the arena, uncovering buried family secrets and facing the harsh realities of his world. While the film retains the spectacle of brutal gladiatorial combat, it takes on a more theatrical tone, with Rome's leaders portrayed in a heightened, almost flamboyant manner, almost ridiculous manner, frankly, that adds an unexpected layer of campiness to the narrative.
Unexpected.
Yeah. Ooh la la. Though the visuals and combat sequences are as grand as expected, Gladiator 2 walks a fine line between epic and exaggerated, offering a mix of action, political intrigue, and a touch of melodrama. Perhaps more than a touch of melodrama.
Sure.
It's a continuation of the original themes, but with a new perspective that leans more into Rome's chaotic, unpredictable nature. So what did you think of A, the synopsis, and B, the film?
I lost track of all the names, and I just loved listening to you try to say them.
Yeah,
it was the
thanks.
best thing ever.
Great.
Yeah. It made me think about Russell Crowe and his Aussie accent.
Fondly?
Fondly, yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, good. So what did you think of the film?
I really, really didn't like it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I didn't like it as much as the guy who walked out at about the 3/4 mark.
Grumbling.
Grumbling, yeah. Audibly grumbling, like he had to make a statement. But how about you? Where do you stand on the scale of, between me not liking it but staying and him?
Yeah. So I also just stayed, not just because we were going to do an episode on it and I was sitting next to you, but also like it wasn't that bad that I couldn't see the film through, but it was pretty bad. It's not a glowing review from me, unfortunately.
Its problem was that it wasn't consistently terrible.
Right.
Like it would occasionally reel you in and say, okay, maybe we can stick with this. Maybe this is coming good. Maybe Pedro Pascal's sort of look off into the distance has just drawn me in this time.
Yeah.
But then it loses me again.
Yeah. I think it suffers from the fact that it's a sequel to a really great film. And it's not a very different storyline. They've gone for almost the same storyline, but just done it not as well as was done in the original. And so the whole time you're watching it, you're going, oh, this is familiar, but not as good.
This is exactly the same, but not as good. Yeah,
exactly. Oh, we're doing that, are we?
Again.
The same thing that we did last time, but not as well or with as convincing performances. Or, like it's so odd. Why would you do that?
Oh, well, many films have, and we'll probably talk about some.
We will. Unfortunately, we will.
I was thinking about where the film lost me, and I think it was in a few points, but we spoke in our last episode, I think, about the start of Heretic.
Yes.
And how we were a bit uneasy about that. I thought the start of this film was very telling as well in it's in its failure, personally.
Yeah. Tell me more.
Well, tell you more. I actually wish for a film of this length, I wish it had told me more.
Oh, right. Yes.
I felt we just glossed over the relationship with his wife. Like, it seemed like just enough that we saw them hanging out the washing or something for 3 seconds. Him give her a kiss. They go off to battle. She dies, and that's not enough for me to really to feel it.
No.
And then straight into this enormous battle, where from memory in Gladiator, you kind of, it grounds you a bit more at the start and makes you actually, feel like you know him.
Yeah, I was trying to think, what is the difference? Because you don't really know the wife or the child in the first Gladiator either.
Yeah.
In fact, you know them less, I would say. But I think it's the fact that the film starts with a huge war, which he wins, and you get this real sense that he's bloody tired of it. And then he goes home, to finally be back on the farm. So I think it's that it's his perspective about, like, yes, I'm finally going to go back to my wife and child. And then when he gets there, that's when the devastation happens. Whereas this is sort of flipped. It starts off with the promise of these two have this great, this sort of the story of these two have this great relationship, which you don't actually really see. They're just sort of telling you it's a great relationship in, very rushed strokes. And then the tragedy happens and it just sort of all falls flat.
Yep. Completely. It's like, oh, believe us. This is a love of the ages.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't see it.
Yes.
And therefore we don't care, and we continue not to care for the rest of the film.
So what's the lesson there? Is the lesson to do less like Gladiator 1? If that's all if you're just having the wife as a symbol of what he's missing, you know what I mean? Like, this one feels like it tries to do more but then fails, and actually fails because it's tried to do more and done it badly.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Right.
I think whether or not the wife or whoever it might be, the reason for living is developed or not is probably beside the point. It's more, do you relate to the central character?
Right.
And even if you don't know them, you know that he is, completely drawn and impelled to live his life for her.
Totally. I would rather know. I'd rather see how important this is to him than have this sort of half-baked relationship that they try to get across in like a scene or two.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay. Well, that's one talking point. There's probably heaps. You want to give me one?
Well, can I just say that on every level, our good mate Paul Mescal, who I hear is great in other things, does not at all come close to what Russell Crowe did with his take on the Gladiator. And it's weird because you can see that he's got the masculinity required. He's got the sort of, I imagine a sense like there's a presence about the man.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't come through the camera. It doesn't come across on the same in anywhere near the same way. And like one good example is how well does Russell Crowe nail the discovery of his wife and child when she dies, because he knows how important pivotal that moment is to the whole thing. And then in this film, it just felt pretty lackluster in comparison.
I don't think that's Mescal or whatever his name is fault. He's not as good as Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe was really great in this. It's just thinking about it makes me kind of like Russell Crowe again, because he's sort of, he annoys me sometimes as well.
Sure.
But he was great.
Yep.
And Mescal is pretty good. I don't think he's got the script or any of the heft in all the other parts of filmmaking behind him to make him sing. And he's also up against some pretty formidable other characters that, make it hard to be about his story.
Yes.
I'm thinking of two.
Let me give you another example. What's another thing you have to nail in a Gladiator film?
The fight scenes.
Yes. Okay, he does. I think he actually does do well in the fight scenes. What's a third thing you have to nail in a Gladiator film?
The heroic speeches.
Yes, the heroic speeches. Does he nail his heroic speeches in this film?
So you're making my point for me. He doesn't nail them.
No.
But I think the problem is more that there's nothing to bloody nail.
Right.
Because the speeches are crappy.
Speeches aren't as good.
You know, go through the script and find me a heroic line.
Yeah.
Find me a "Are you not entertained?" or whatever he says.
Yeah.
There's nothing in it. It's
Yeah.
just all filler that they it's first pass script that they never came back to.
How does that happen? That's an age-old question.
I know, because they used all their budget on those bloody monkeys, those CGI monkeys.
But technically, before the budget is divvied out for the CGI monkeys, there's a budget for the script.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's the way it works. I don't know.
Look, maybe I'm being cruel, but I think
No, you're right.
It's not that it was awful. It's just that perhaps Gladiator, why it works, or one of the reasons it works, is because it's just got a little bit more depth than a typical, action or epic film.
Yeah.
And that's the layering and bloody the script and the performances and the nuance. And this one just doesn't have it.
So you were just about to segue into villains or other characters that are up against Paul Mescal, or he has to act against. And we have quite a list in this.
Yeah.
In this.
A couple worth talking about.
Absolutely. So I would say the obvious thing from Gladiator that you can then compare to this Gladiator 2 would be the Emperor.
Yes.
Which he's not really, he becomes an emperor, but, Joaquin Phoenix plays his part beautifully.
Yeah.
And then we have in Gladiator 2 the twins, which I think they were going for decline of the Roman Empire.
Excess,
thank you. Excess. I think that's what they were going for.
They were going for it, and they nailed excess, but they were too true to excess, and they overdid it.
Sure.
They overdid the bloody excess.
Yeah.
There's a through line because Joaquin's character was also a little bit bloody odd and slimy looking and, creepy and, in comparison to the strong, very serious, Russell Crowe. And it's like time has passed, things have degraded even further. So they wanted to show this opulent ridiculousness of what the empire has become.
Yeah.
And then you got the Great British Bake Off guy doing the
yes,
being the sort of the race caller.
and boy, did he look weird. It took me a little while to recognize him
Yeah.
because he's just lost so much weight.
Well, they all looked weird and sort of creepy, and that was the point. So give
Sure.
them that, but it was out of keeping with a film like this. It just seemed like comic relief.
Yes. What's the town in Hunger Games called? The city in Hunger Games called where all the people are based? It's basically modeled over after the decline of Rome.
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, that's a good
it's
point.
That. It's almost like they took the characters from Hunger Games, and just dropped them into a Gladiator film.
Yeah.
And put togas on them because that's more appropriate to the era.
And it doesn't work, and there's a point at which it really yelled at me that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that's bringing in Pedro Pascal now, who I like talking about. 'Cause
Sure.
I'm not sure if other people agree, but I thought he was the heart and soul of the film. I really enjoyed his performance.
He was trying really hard.
He was trying really
He was
hard.
trying hard to bring it all back, to try and ground the whole damn thing somewhere.
Yes, he was
Yep.
he was the grounding agent.
Yes.
And the moment when he walks into the the emperor's temple, whatever it is, it's not a temple, but and he's going head to head with these two squirmy little brothers. It was like two completely different films.
Yeah.
Like two characters from different films just going head to head. It's like Wolverine and Deadpool.
Right.
He was Wolverine. These idiots are Deadpool, but it just didn't bloody work.
Okay. Yeah, totally. You know what grounded the original film? We're talking about everything being grounded now, but Joaquin Phoenix Emperor was clearly no sort of masculine match for Maximus, but he wanted to be. And you understood how badly he wanted to be that man and could never be.
Yeah.
And that was the tragedy of his character. And it made you understand who he was and why he was doing what he was doing on some level. Do you understand or what is going on with these two brothers at all and why they're doing anything they're doing? Especially when one of them is just given the sort of free pass of, well, he's just a bit crazy, like he's just insane. So he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, and that's it. We didn't know him before. We didn't know what he'd been some great genius and become this lunatic.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about their relationship to make the fact that they then turn on each other have any resonance.
Right.
There's nothing about it. They just caricatures that one kills the other as a plot device to keep the story moving and let Denzel have his way.
Yes. Let's talk about Denzel.
Let's talk about Denzel.
Yeah.
You go first.
Thoughts about Denzel, where to start? Well, I think for one, he took this on as a way...
As a favour to somebody?
No, I was going to say as a way to bring another big performance. And the thing you keep hearing about is, this is training day in ancient Rome, which I think is kind of accurate. Like the way he goes about this character does feel like that. But I think he was reaching for another training day performance, but trying to bring that intensity to this, slave owner. And it's sort of, it just comes off as a bit ridiculous, and it's hard to take seriously.
Yeah, I'm glad you think that, because I've heard around the traps people saying, Denzel, he was riveting. Like, I just wanted it to get back to the Denzel scenes. I like Denzel as much as anybody. Like, I really do. But again, I thought he didn't fit in the film.
No.
It was like, remember we reviewed Macbeth?
Yeah.
And it was like this, American bloke just popping onto the Globe Theatre, being completely out of place.
Yeah.
He's doing the same now in the Colosseum, where he's great, but he doesn't bloody belong there.
I think we liked him a bit more in Macbeth. We thought he was okay. He was passable in Macbeth. Is that right? Or were we... I can't remember. It's been a while.
I can't remember either, but he was passable in this too. I
suppose.
Sort of half enjoyed watching him. He took me out of the film.
Yeah.
And into Denzel land.
Yeah. Also, this is a thing that I discovered while watching this. If you have a great villain, someone who's meant to be a great villain, like the arch nemesis, and they're really plaguing your hero horribly the whole way through the thing, you need them to have a great death. And his death is not great. I don't think it's great. Well, it could have been, but the way they handled it in the water, and it just got messy. It was messy. It needs to be clean and excellent, like really done well, Well, that's my opinion.
Your opinion is right.
Okay.
But let's go one step back.
Sure.
Because it's not even about his death. It's about the fact that he was fighting against the gladiator in the first place.
Right. Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, he's not a gladiator.
He's some old has-been.
Yep.
He hasn't held a sword, as far as we can tell.
Nope.
For years and years, if ever.
Yep.
And now he's up against the greatest rhino sharknado killer we've ever seen, and they have a real battle. Like it's
doesn't
tense.
Make sense. Yeah, you're right. It should have just been, we're rewriting the script now.
Yeah.
It should have been, he has some great scene, head chopped off.
Yeah.
Instantly, just dead.
Some
He has some great speech, right? That's what I meant to say, not scene.
Or some just really pathetic death where
Sure.
But that goes against the fact that we are kind of rooting for him.
Yeah.
Because we don't know who he is for most of the film. And so we kind of think he might be a benefactor of the gladiator. And then, of course, there's, spoiler alert, there's a twist. And he becomes, we see that he's not all that he was cracked up to be.
Yep. This is one of the places where Gladiator 2 departs from Gladiator 1. They went, oh, imagine if the slave owner guy had sort of desires or, plans to be the new emperor of Rome. Yeah, interesting. Now I'm going to rewrite that ending again. So I think for sure they should have been, say they go out to between the two armies, they're under the arch.
Yep, that ridiculous scene, yep.
Yes. For whatever reason, they're there. So, yes, really awesome final speech. He thinks maybe he's got the army on his side. This is Denzel I'm talking about. And he thinks maybe he's won. And then Paul chops his head off. And that's it.
It's a great ending.
He hasn't won. He just dies instantly because he's lame.
Wow. Could you now rewrite the beginning and the middle?
Okay.
And then we may just have a film.
Sure.
Speaking of may have a film, what's your reminds me of for? Or are we up to this?
Yeah, we're up to this. I think we've really talked about Gladiator 2 more than we need to. But we will get to it. But we will get to it through films that we were reminded of. That's where the juice is.
Now I know what your pick is.
Sure.
I'm really keen to talk about it.
Okay.
But I want you to give a synopsis first, and better than the one I gave for
Great.
Gladiator.
Well, first I'll just set up this. I was thinking, what is a film that's really great? An action film. Let's say, what's a really great action film that we all love and is kind of just nails every element of it being what it's supposed to be.
Yep.
But then they went and made a sequel that was almost exactly the same film, but awful in every way.
I think I know where you're going.
Speed 2, Cruise Control.
Yeah. Give it to me.
Annie Porter, played by Sandra Bullock, is back. But this time, her new boyfriend, Alex Shaw, played by Jason Patric, and his impressive jaw muscles, swaps out the high-speed bus for a leisurely cruise in the Caribbean. Or so they thought. Their relaxing trip hits rough waters when a grumpy hacker, Geiger, played by Willem Dafoe, commandeers the ship and rigs it for destruction. Armed with leeches, for some reason, high-tech things that do stuff to the systems of the boat, and a dubious revenge plot, Geiger threatens everyone on board with a slow-motion disaster. The boat is headed for an island, and for some reason the cruise control won't let them take over, and it's going to crash sometime in the future. What follows is a bloated attempt to recapture the adrenaline of the original Speed. The ship moves slower than the plot, and the tension barely keeps pace, with awkward dialogue, unconvincing stakes, and an absence of Keanu Reeves. Speed 2 crashes hard, becoming a legendary flop. Still, it's maybe worth a watch for anyone curious to see how not to make a sequel to a classic action film, to see Sandra Bullock try her hardest to charm the film to success, and to get a sense of where Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin evolved from.
A slow-moving disaster, you said.
That's right.
We could probably stop there.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything else to say.
I think there's a lot to say.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is so fun to watch.
It is, yeah. It's actually kind of entertaining still. Like it's crap, but it's good. It's one of those.
No, it's not good. It is just crap, but it's still fun to watch.
Sure.
Because with some films, at some point, you really think, no, there's no saving this, and then you're watching for the next ridiculous thing. You're just waiting for something silly to happen.
Yeah.
Such as when the ship is cruising and it's going to hit the island.
Yeah.
And it's slowing down, but it's still moving, and there's people in front of the ship, like in little boats and stuff. That one by one, they realize just at the last second that the ship is going to get to them, and you see people just throwing up their groceries with baguettes flying in the air. People caught in the middle of lovemaking. It's just ridiculous.
It's a little bit like that scene from Austin Powers where the guy, the henchman, is about to get steamrolled by the steamroller, but it's obviously going at like 5 kilometers per hour.
Yeah.
And he just stands there and screams until eventually it gets to him and rolls him over. It's a bit like that.
No, it's exactly like that. And then I know we're starting with the end, which is
Yes.
probably not what you should do. It's my fault.
That's fine.
And then after all that, this sequence goes for minutes,
Yeah.
minutes and minutes and minutes, and then you see where the ship is, and it's only just inched into the island.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
should be like 3 kilometers inland.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, we've started at the end. What would you like to say about Speed 2?
Only that the first Speed is such a great film. I watched it again recently.
So did I.
And it is so much fun.
Yeah.
And Keanu Reeves is great in it. Just a good action star. He's sort of deadpan in some ways, but kind of has just the right amount of charm at the same time, and believability as a guy who can do the things that he's doing. And I don't think it's Jason Patric's fault, but he's just I don't know. He just doesn't really bring the magic to this at all. And it feels like Sandra Bullock's trying, and he just doesn't have the required chemistry to make it work.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. But again, not entirely his fault.
No.
Like, congratulations on picking a film that has a worse script than Gladiator 2.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, this is really bad, but it's a great lesson. Like, I found it was instructing me on how to write by telling me how not to write.
Yeah.
Like the flatness of the dialogue
Yeah.
was, it actually hit you in the face. Like, they would have, a lot of it was along the lines of move the ship away, or hold this thing.
Sure.
Or we need to turn off the propeller, or
Yep.
just completely functional, no depth
Yep.
to it whatsoever. And what can you do? What can you do with that?
One of my favorite things was right at the start. Can't remember how far in it. It's not very far. Willem Dafoe's character sort of gets discovered that I think he allows himself to be discovered with the captain of the ship just before he kills him.
Yeah.
And he basically says, "Who am I? I'm the guy,
Green Goblin."
Yeah, exactly. I'm the Green Goblin who used to work on ships and just got thrown away." I'm like, oh wow, okay, just laying it out there.
Yeah.
Which in the first film is the story as well. Essentially,
Yeah.
like the guy's retired and
Yeah, yeah.
he didn't get what he wanted out of his career, but you find that out right at the end, and he kind of earns that speech.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Defoe, it's not just that one moment.
Yeah.
Like, basically any time he gets to speak,
Yeah.
it's exposition. Like, it's
Sure.
explaining something of his motivation, while he's, pushing someone into the water. He's saying, I'm pushing you into the water, because of X, Y, Z.
Sure.
This is why I'm doing it.
This
just
really
in
helps
case
my plan because of this.
Yes, because now you won't be able to do this, and I'm gonna, but it's not as if the first Speed is a masterpiece.
No.
Like, it just knows its genre and does what it's trying to do perfectly.
Yeah, I think that the script for the first Speed's probably, dialogue's probably not amazing, but it's just it's handled really well. There's a director that knows how to make an action film there, and everybody's playing their part really well, and it works.
Something that almost brought Jason Patrick to life. I think I swallowed a fly. Most exciting thing that's happened on Speed 2. There's a scene where a young girl, I don't know what she is, 11 or 12. I think she says she's going to be 15. But they're making goo-goo eyes at each other across the room, and it really feels uncomfortable. Do you remember this?
When he first sees her and they start doing the sign language, is that what
They
you're talking
see each other from across the room.
about? Yeah.
And she's clearly got the hots for him.
Sure.
And he's basically, making, love language in sign to her across the room. And then, I kid you not, the next scene, there is Lolita playing on the television.
Is there? I didn't see that.
So all of this told me, like it's they've
that's
clearly,
weird.
well, it's weird, but they've clearly done it on purpose because they think it's funny, and it just said to me, maybe it was funny then,
Right.
you know, that we've moved so far that we see that as just completely sickening
Wow.
now, but it was sort of just how funny, you know, that's happening.
Obviously I picked up some of that in the scene, but I missed the Lolita reference. That's great.
Yeah, wow.
Well, look, we could bang on about it more, but I reckon we should jump onto your reminds me of. Doc.
Okay, let's do it.
a
Okay, I'm
banger.
going to take it up a notch.
Good.
And I'm going to talk about a film that I think did better than Gladiator 2. Mm-hmm. Trying to do similar things, but did better.
Good.
And that film is 300. Synopsis?
Please.
300, directed by Zack Snyder, or Jack Snyder, as I often refer to him as,
Okay.
is an epic tale of courage, defiance, and rock-hard abs. Lots of abs. Based on Frank Miller's graphic novel, the film follows King Leonidas, Gerard Butler, and his 300 Spartan warriors as they face off against the overwhelming Persian army led by the flamboyant and intimidating Xerxes. Xerxes? I get all the good pronunciation ones.
Yeah,
don't
you
I?
do. I like this.
That's Rodrigo Santoro. When the Persian Empire threatens to enslave Greece, Leonidas leads his small but elite force to the narrow pass of Thermopylae. There they use strategy and unyielding determination to hold their ground against waves of Persian soldiers. As battles rage, Queen Gorgo, Lena Headley, fights her own war back in Sparta, striving to rally support for her husband's impossible stand. The film's hyper-stylized visuals and visceral action blend with moments of betrayal and sacrifice, creating a dramatic retelling of one of history's most famous last stands. 300 is a bold spectacle of grit and glory, where legend and myth collide in a storm of swords and shields.
Swords and sandals.
Sure, swords and sandals.
I love it. Yeah, in the swords and sandals kind of genre, this is a banger. This is one of the big ones.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Comic book kind of swords and sandals.
Yeah, really stylized. And probably one of the things that Zack Snyder I think got right.
Yeah, I think he nailed it.
Yep.
It's not perfect again, but it hits for such a bold film.
Yeah.
Look, it really is out there, and it hits more nails on the head than it misses.
It's still really fun to watch. It still looks amazing. All of that visual style holds up. Like
Yeah.
I could see this film being made today. It'd probably be a little crisper. It'd probably have, it'd look a little sharper, but it's pretty great. And actually really, it's really heavy with grain and grit, which I think is what makes it stand up so well.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, keeps you guessing and thinking.
Yep.
But the main thing that drew me to talk about this one was how much I didn't like the Roman emperors.
Yeah.
And how kind of pathetically they were.
Yeah.
and mismatched and they kind of wrecked Gladiator for me. Gladiator 2. In 300, Snyder's trying to do a similar he does a similar thing.
Yeah,
He
with Xerxes. Yeah.
Yeah, he makes the Persians kind of ridiculous. Like they're not realistically portrayed,
Yep.
and yet somehow they fit. It
Yeah. works. The whole thing's hyper masculine, and I think the way he plays with that and the variations of masculinity in this film is interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe that's straight out of the comic. I don't know.
Another thing that it does well, that Gladiator doesn't, is the setup and making you care about the characters.
Yeah.
And I think that's just all the more bloody impressive that this is a comic, and it's so sparing. It doesn't have. It's not as long as Gladiator. It's punchy. It moves through the action quite quickly, and yet it grounds it. Like with the Lena Headey character, you're right in there. You really know who she is, what she's about, and you know their relationship. Even the sex scene is kind of spicy and cool, in a way that Hollywood doesn't do often. Like you get some character out of the sex scene.
Yeah.
Everything is used for purpose.
Yeah.
Completely unlike Gladiator 2.
I think if I were to sort of talk about some potential flaws with it, I think that you get a little tired of the action at a certain point.
Yeah, yeah.
The fight stops being, I think because of the sort of what a hyper style that they've used for it, it sort of becomes a little tiring after a while. And then the other thing was when they all die, spoiler alert at the end,
Yeah.
it happens so suddenly that I kind of didn't care too much. I feel like we lost an emotional moment there. Like maybe if they'd made a bit more of that final push, that final battle, and then they'd all died, that I would have felt it more.
Yeah.
It just happened so suddenly.
Ended in a whimper, not a bang, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgive it though, because I think clearly that was done on purpose.
Sure.
So I'm gonna just grant them that.
Yep.
And as for the getting sick of the the battles, I agree, but I reckon they did a pretty good job, and it reminds me of Alien, and you being reminded of Alien Isolation.
Yep.
The game.
Sure.
I thought they set up that fairly cleverly for it feeling like a game, like Double Dragon or something. So you clock one level and then you look up on the hill and there's another one coming. And because it's very comic book, it allowed it to do that in a stylized way that just got through a few enemies, each getting more ridiculous than the other.
Totally.
But making it fun where it could.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Did you find the rape scene a little bit squeamish? A little squirrely, a little uncomfortable? Or were you okay with it?
Well, no, I'm not okay with it.
Were you okay with rape scenes, Doc?
Well, I just said that the sex scene was really good, and
I knew which scene you were talking about. You were talking about the
my
earlier
goodness, yes,
sex scene.
I should have clarified.
Not the rapey one.
No, the rapey one was very well handled, I thought, because it was unlike the first, unlike the nice one, which got a little explicit. We see beneath the covers. This one was more shoulder up and more about her defiance.
Definitely.
And I really felt that you were feeling for her and the sacrifice that she's willingly making.
Yep.
And then when you see them both, at the Senate,
And he turns it on her.
he turns it on her.
a dog move.
It was a dog
Another
move.
dog move. Yeah.
But you've just seen them in the bedroom, and now
Yep.
he's done that, and it really had resonance. So I liked the scene.
I would see, that's the thing too, right? Is I would vote for the scene in the same way that you just did. Like it works, right? The thing is that in this today, I feel like we are far less likely to see rape scenes in films.
Yeah.
And it's changed the dynamic of like how the viewer views a rape scene.
Yeah.
It's almost like, we're pretending that it never happens. And so it's being slowly written out of stories, even though obviously there's an awful long history of rape happening in the world.
I reckon this is just a phase where films don't have the courage to confront difficult things.
Yeah.
Well, films and society. And, I don't particularly like rapey scenes or scenes where the bloke's making eyes at the young chick or any of those. But
True.
it does exist in the real world.
Yeah.
So I am happy to see it represented.
I agree. Okay, good. Anything else you wanted to say about 300?
I just want to say, we talked about how great the Speed 2 script was. I just want to say that 300 actually was great.
Yeah.
and this may stem from the fact that it's, comes from a graphic novel. Therefore, every word means something.
Yeah.
I felt on several occasions I paused and marveled at how economical and both melodramatic and beautiful it was.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree. I think really well put together. Probably the one little thing that stuck out to me was how much they were yelling at each other the whole way through the film. Seemed a little unnecessary sometimes, but also the whole thing was like, this is Sparta. These are Spartans. These are like intense people that do yell at each other all the time.
But they weren't always yelling.
No, it just seemed that way.
No, there were moments of light and shade, and that was the real victory of this film, that they can be yelling at each other and then go almost seamlessly into a tender moment where, and there was some barreling of the camera, which I love occasionally. There was even like humor where he's suddenly sounds very Irish and eating an apple and making jokes in the middle of the battlefield, which is silly but fits.
Yes.
There was several tones in one that worked.
Yeah. Should we just sort of wrap up what we think about Gladiator 2?
I don't have any final thoughts on Gladiator 2 other than
You'd rather talk about the other films.
other than not wanting a Gladiator 3.
Yes, please. Now, apparently the thing was a huge financial success, so we might get Gladiator 3.
Really?
Surprisingly, did really well at the box office. In fact, I think I saw somewhere that this is Ridley Scott's most successful box office film, or second most, or something. Like, it's up there. It's done very well.
Wow. Well, maybe.
What do you do with that?
Maybe we've got it wrong.
No.
Maybe in 10 years' time, maybe in 24 years' time, we'll be talking about Gladiator 2 rather than Gladiator.
I just don't think we've got it wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe people are starved for, something that feels like Gladiator, and so they just went to see it and then realized it wasn't too late and they'd already paid their money, and what do you do?
You know what I'm not really starved for?
What?
Is another Ridley Scott film anytime soon.
Yeah.
Nothing against Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
I like Ridley Scott, but we had Napoleon semi-recently last year.
Yeah.
And, we had Alien Romulus, which wasn't directed by him, but it made us go back and watch his films.
Yeah.
I'm keen to get into someone else.
Just marveling at how good he's been in the past and then how he misses so badly sometimes is its own little thing that, I agree. I could use a break. I did like The Duel. There was out a few somewhere before Napoleon and between that and something else that he did. That I thought that had merit. It was actually a pretty good film. But on the whole, there's been a lot of misses recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he wants to do a shark film.
Stop it. Really?
No, it was just he tried so hard to get bloody sharks into the Coliseum.
I could see him doing a shark film. Sharknado 10, directed by Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott. Oh, okay. On that note, I think we should wrap it.
Yeah. Cool, Doc. It's going to be Christmas soon.
Yes.
Yeah. So we might be having a little break.
Oh, I'll miss you.
I'll miss you too.
Yeah, we'll try and keep some, little shorts going over Christmas just to pretend that we're still doing something, but
totally
it might be January before you hear from us.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Thank you for watching. See you soon.
Au revoir.